Begin this morning, though, with some possibly hopeful signs in the ongoing standoff over raising the debt ceiling.
The president is in Japan this morning. He arrived earlier today and will take part in the G7 summit tomorrow. But he plans on cutting the trip short so he can get back to Washington over the weekend to continue negotiating a deal with congressional leaders. This is a positive sign that both sides are inching closer to an agreement, but time is running out. We are now just 2 weeks away from the U.S. potentially reaching the debt ceiling limit, forcing the country to default on its debts. Before he left, President Biden expressed confidence a deal will get done.
America is not a deadbeat nation. We pay our bills. The nation has never defaulted on its debt, and it never will. And we're going to continue these discussions with congressional leaders in the coming days until we reach an agreement.
NBC News White House correspondent Mike Memoli is traveling with the president. Joins us now from Hiroshima, Japan. Mike, good morning to you. So let's start with these debt ceiling negotiations. The president cutting his trip short. No Australia, no Papua New Guinea, so he can get back here to keep negotiating. Where do things stand right now when it comes to getting a deal done?
Well, Joe, it was clear yesterday that Tuesday's meeting between President Biden and congressional leadership went far better than that initial meeting the week before. You saw a little bit of a war of words between the president and Speaker McCarthy over the politics around this debt ceiling debate. But even the speaker yesterday was saying that he feels that the negotiations are in a much more serious place, faulting the president for taking some time to get there, of course. Now, the president himself, before making that very long journey here to Japan, clearly also wanted to leave on an optimistic note, but also a reminder about what's at stake here. Take a listen.
We're going to come together because there's no alternative to do the right thing for the country. We have to move on. And to be clear, this negotiation is about the outlines of what the budget will look like, not about whether or not we're going to, in fact, pay our debts. The leaders have all agreed we will not default. Every leader has said that. It would be catastrophic for the American economy and the American people if we didn't pay our bills.
Now, one of the reasons for this optimism around the talks is that both sides, especially Speaker McCarthy and the president, have really assigned and empowered some of their top lieutenants to enter into more serious negotiations while the president is overseas. Those meetings have already been happening multiple times a day. The real goal here is to ensure that there is somewhat of a framework of a deal before the president returns to Washington by Monday, potentially another meeting next week. Yes, we have about 2 weeks, but the time legislatively to get this done is really short, and that's why there's a real urgency around these talks right now, Joe.
Yeah, they can't really wait till May 31st to reach a deal. So, Mike, some Senate Democrats are circulating a draft of a letter. It urges the president to invoke the 14th Amendment to raise the debt ceiling. The president previously considered it, but concluded that would not solve this logjam. What is it fellow Democrats are saying here?
Yeah, we've been talking about this 14th Amendment option for some time. It really relies on a provision of that amendment that says the validity of the U.S. debt cannot be questioned. There's a belief that it gives the president really an end run around Congress to ensure that we do not default. Senate Democrats reminding the president of that option. And really what we heard from our Capitol Hill team talking to some of these Senate Democrats involved, it comes from that concern that as part of these negotiations with Republicans, the president might agree to things like work requirements for some federal programs. As Senator Bernie Sanders, obviously a lead progressive, says he will not accept a situation where we balance the nation's budget on the backs of the working class. He called that insane. Now, as a reminder, the president has said he believes there might be some legality to this option, but he thinks in the short term it's not really something he would consider, because if he were to take it, there would be an immediate constitutional challenge to it, which might only add to the uncertainty around this debt ceiling debate.
And, Mike, I'm sure you were super excited to travel all the way to Japan just so you can talk more about the debt ceiling. So we should ask you why you are in Japan, the G7 summit taking place. So tell us what's on the president's agenda during this trip.
Well, Joe, obviously the concerns at home are here for all of us, including the president and those covering him. But really, when you talk about the president's foreign policy, he's really framed it, said the 21st century is this battle between autocracies like Russia and China and democracies. And this summit that the president is attending is a perfect example. There's going to be a very clear focus in the early days on the war in Ukraine, the fact that there's been broad support among the U.S. allies, not just in Europe, but from countries like the host country here, Japan, to support Ukraine really is a source of great pride for the president. The leaders tomorrow are actually going to be visiting that atomic bomb memorial, a real reminder of what's at stake as Russia has deployed some some of their nuclear weapons potentially in theater. But there's also obviously a significant focus on China as it has worked to expand its influence, not just in the region, but throughout the world over the last decade. And that's what we saw today as President Biden sat down with the Japanese Prime Minister. That relationship, not just economically, but over national security, has really deepened over the last few years. It's been a linchpin to U.S. efforts to curb China's growing influence. And we'll hear a lot from the leaders in the coming days about really work not just among their alliance, but within the developing world to try to edge out China here. Joe.
So many important issues to discuss. Mike Memoli in Japan. Mike, thank you.
Well, this morning, the future of disgraced Congressman George Santos remains up in the air. The House voted yesterday to refer a Democratic-sponsored resolution to kick Santos out of Congress to the House Ethics Committee. The referral was approved in a vote along party lines, 221 to 204. Well, after the vote, Santos said he believed the chamber made the right decision, and he intends to let the process play out.
I have not done my job since I've gotten here. I can chew and walk gum at the same time. I can chew gum and walk at the same time. I have not been convicted of any crime. You insist in saying that. I will have my day to defend myself.
NBC News congressional correspondent Julie Sirkin joins us now with more on this. Hey, Julie, good morning. So the House voted to refer the resolution to kick Santos out of Congress to the House Ethics Committee. Explain what happens next.
Yeah, good morning, Savannah. So the Ethics Committee is a bipartisan panel. It's led by Democrat Susan Wild and Republican David Joyce of Ohio. And this panel has already been looking into all of the allegations against Congressman George Santos since early March. So that's one of the arguments that Democrats, especially those that supported that original resolution to expel Santos from Congress, that's the argument they have made, that the ethics panel has already been looking into this. Referring this resolution to the panel won't do much to speed up that process or add to what the ethics panel is already looking into, but that's basically where it's going to sit for an X amount of time. That panel tends to operate very much behind closed doors. They don't really have an open dialogue with the public or the press into what they're doing and what they're investigating, but they're also looking into other allegations, other lies that Santos has told, including allegedly an improper sexual relationship with one of his former staffers. That was referred to the panel as well, while all of these outside investigations play out.
Julie, also, our viewers probably remember just last week, Santos pleaded not guilty to 13 criminal charges that included fraud, money laundering, a bunch of other crimes. He's already said he's running for re-election. There is no law, no precedent that says a member of Congress can't continue to serve while indicted or even convicted. So if he's not planning to resign, he's already talking about re-election. This is really up to the Ethics Committee to decide his future in Congress. Is that right?
Well, kind of. And the Ethics Committee investigation into Santos can take longer than the 2 years that he's going to serve in Congress. So you're right. Technically, if that investigation is still happening, all of these outside investigations, including the one where he was indicted in New York, is still in the process of going on. Technically, nothing is stopping Santos from running again. But remember, he did win in a district where Biden won in 2020, so it is traditionally a Democrat district. And on top of that, the leader of his Republican Party, Speaker McCarthy in the House, already said that he's not going to support a Santos re-election bid. Here, though, is some reaction from Democrats, including a freshman Democrat from New York. Watch.
It is a cop-out, and that at the end of the day, it is a way of avoiding the accountability on this expulsion motion.
And we should not refer this matter to the Ethics Committee. This resolution is already there. Now, every Republican should stand up and join us to defend this body and expel George Santos.
Now, I will say Democrats and Republicans, for that matter, including those 5 freshman Republicans that are Santos's colleagues that have called for him to resign but supported this move to move this resolution Santos to the Ethics Committee. This can all build pressure on Speaker McCarthy, who really has the final say of what happens to Santos and his here.
All right, Julie Sirkin, thank you so much.
Turning now to the ongoing bans affecting the LGBTQ plus community in red states. Yesterday, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed 4 bills that took aim at the transgender community, drag performances, and discussions of sexual orientation and gender identity in the classroom.
Activists say the introduction of these 4 bills is the largest slate of anti-LGBTQ bills in one legislative session that Florida has ever seen. DeSantis had this to say about the bills.
We're protecting kids. And we're going to protect kids when it's popular. We'll protect kids even when you take some incoming as a result of maybe offending some ideologies or some agendas out there, but that's fine.
NBC Out reporter Joe Yerkeba is here with more on all this. Joe, thank you for joining us. You covered this extensively. Let's start with two of the bills that are really focused on minors. One would ban really gender-affirming care for transgender kids. The other one is an expansion of what critics call the Don't Say Gay law, really restricting discussions of sexual orientation, gender identity in the classroom. Tell us more about what we should know about these bills and what happens if someone violates these new laws.
Sure. So under current law, the so-called Don't Say Gay law, it prohibits instruction on sexual orientation and gender identity in K through 3rd grades. So this new law is going to expand that through 8th grade, but it also is going to put restrictions on reproductive health education in 6th through 12th grade, and it's going to say you can only do that in a way that's age or developmentally appropriate. And then so there's, if a teacher were to violate that law, they could potentially lose their license, or a parent could sue their school district. The other new bill is the one that would ban gender-affirming care for minors, and it's really the most extreme that we've seen in the country so far, according to advocates, because it would allow Florida to take custody of children whose parents provide them with gender-affirming care, even if those families, for example, are just visiting Florida from out of state, so they provide their kids with care in other states. So it's really unprecedented, and if a provider violates that law, they could face up to 5 years in prison.
Also, I understand two other bills take aim at transgender people as well, and drag performances. What do we need to know about those ones?
Right. So Florida is now the only state in the country that bars trans people from using public facilities that align with their gender identities, basically in any publicly funded area. So government-owned buildings, schools, colleges, and they're the only state in the nation to do that. Other states have similar laws, but they're much more restricted. They also now have one of these restrictions on drag performances, even though the bill doesn't specifically say anything about drag. DeSantis said in his press conference yesterday that it was specifically intended to restrict drag performances.
And that is, of course, a huge issue right now. It's getting a lot of debate, got a lot of attention in Tennessee as well. Let's switch gears to Texas, because Texas right now has a bill that's heading to the desk of Governor Greg Abbott. This one also bans gender-affirming care for transgender minors. Talk more about this one and what are the implications here?
Sure, yeah. So the bill would restrict trans care for minors, and this is a bill that the state has been pursuing for years now. So if Abbott does sign it, then it's going to, have a really big effect on the community. And parents have told me that it's important to know that in other states that have passed these bills, judges have blocked them from taking effect. But the problem is that usually providers preemptively stop providing care anyway. So I've heard from a number of families in Texas who plan to leave the state even if the law is blocked from taking effect.
We should know pretty much everything we've discussed here. There's a legal challenge and all these issues are pending in court, right?
Right, exactly. And parents have actually already preemptively filed a legal challenge in Florida to block that law.
All right. Joe Yerkeba, we appreciate your reporting. Thanks for joining us.
Good to have you on set.
One of the world's most famous couples, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, you've probably heard of them. They were involved in a pursuit by photographers in New York City on Tuesday. Now, a spokesperson for the Duke and Duchess of Sussex alleges that the two were part of a dangerous 2-hour car chase, saying they were pursued by highly aggressive paparazzi that resulted in multiple near collisions.
Well, law enforcement has pushed back against some of those characterizations, describing Tuesday's incident as a little less harrowing. NBC News national correspondent Gabe Gutierrez has more.
A spokesperson for Prince Harry and his wife Meghan says that this pursuit was near catastrophic. The NYPD won't go that far, but now we're hearing from a cab driver who drove the famous couple for at least part of the night. Prince Harry and his wife Meghan Markle seen here leaving a charity event in New York, and there appear to be differing accounts about what happened next. A spokesperson for the Duke and Duchess of Sussex admonishing photographers for a relentless pursuit that lasted 2 hours and resulted in multiple near collisions involving other drivers on the road, pedestrians, and 2 NYPD officers. Adding, the near catastrophic car chase came at the hands of a ring of highly aggressive paparazzi.
The briefing I received, 2 of our officers could have been injured. I thought that was a bit reckless and irresponsible.
Though at least 3 law enforcement sources tell NBC News the couple was followed, not chased, and that the incident was a bit chaotic, not near catastrophic.
I would find it hard to believe that there was a 2-hour high-speed chase.
In a written statement, the NYPD says numerous photographers made the couple's transport challenging, but there were no reported collisions, injuries, or arrests.
Harry and Meghan had private security as they left this venue, and 2 law enforcement sources tell NBC News that they wanted to return to Manhattan's Upper East Side, where they were staying with a friend, and did not want the paparazzi to follow.
So the law enforcement sources say the couple was driven up and down Manhattan for more than an hour with a police escort. Then the pair was taken to this police precinct where a taxi picked them up.
Would you describe it as chaotic?
Yeah, chaotic. You could say chaotic. Yeah. With me, I don't know what happened previous in the day, right? With me, it was chaotic, but not crazy, right?
Do you think the paparazzi went too far?
I don't know. When we were there, they kept their distance when they were following us in my cab.
Sonny Singh told us he's the taxi driver who picked up the couple, but he says they drove around for only 10 minutes before the street was blocked by a garbage truck.
People just came out of nowhere with cameras and started snapping pictures.
Did they seem worried?
They seem worried. They seem worried and nervous as well.
He then says he dropped them back off at the police precinct, where a different car eventually took them home. Prince Harry, of course, has railed against the paparazzi for much of his life, accusing them of invading his privacy.
I had to do everything I could to protect my family.
Though critics say Harry and Meghan also court the cameras and publicity, pointing to their Netflix docuseries.
No one sees what's happening behind closed doors.
It was 26 years ago this summer that his mother, Princess Diana, died during a car chase in Paris.
We would get followed, photographed, chased, harassed. The clicking of cameras and the flashes of cameras makes my blood boil. It makes me angry. It takes me back to what happened to my mum, what I experienced when I was a kid.
A source close to Harry and Meghan says that there is security video that captured the incident. It has not yet been publicly released. Back to you.
All right, Gabe Gutierrez, thank you so much. Now let's get a look at your morning news now. Weather.
Meteorologist Michelle Grossman is with us this morning with the forecast. Michelle, good morning.
Good morning to you both. And it's cold this morning. You need the layers as you head out. Even the winter coats in spots. We start out with temperatures at or below freezing in many spots from the Midwest to the Northeast. And we have frost advisories, freeze warnings in place. And we're looking at temperatures cool as we go throughout the day, the rest of this Thursday. Temperatures well below average. New York City today just 64 degrees. But we're going to have a lot of sunshine, dry conditions. It's going to feel a little bit like fall. 70 in D.C., 73 in Greensboro, and just 59 in Portland. That is 4 degrees below what is typical for this time of year. We'll keep it cool once again tomorrow, but notice this warm air is working in parts of the Ohio Valley, also the Midwest. So Philadelphia still below average tomorrow, just 72. That's 2 degrees below average. Boston, you're going to be chilly too, just temperatures in the 60s. But then we begin to moderate as we go throughout the rest of the weekend. Starting out Saturday, in most spots, we're looking at cooler conditions below normal. And then by Sunday and Monday, we're back to summer-like temperatures. In Pittsburgh, near 80 degrees on Monday. Richmond, you're going to be at 80 degrees on Monday. And then to the mid-80s in Charlotte. So that's on the East Coast. The West Coast, we're talking about really warm conditions. 85 in Portland. That's 17 degrees above what is typical for this time of year. Into the 90s in Medford, Redding, Sacramento. We're looking at 84 in Boise, well above average for this time of year. We'll keep that heat in place today. Also tomorrow, we've had this heat in place for quite a bit. So not a lot of air conditioning out west. It's going to take its toll as we head throughout the next several days. Spokane, we're looking at 90 on Saturday. Boise into the low 90s Saturday and Sunday. So on the East Coast, we're cool. On the West Coast, we're looking at really warm temperatures. In between here, we're looking at a cold front that's swinging through. So ahead of this cold front and along this cold front, we're looking at the chance for showers. Could see some heavy rain and also the chance for some really strong storms, especially in portions of the southern plains. Specifically, we're looking at Oklahoma into Texas, down to portions of the southeast. We have another front moving through. So we're watching a couple fronts here, and that's going to bring the chance for heavy rain. Notice along the Gulf Coast into portions of the Carolinas, the southeast. We're looking at reds, oranges, yellows. That's indicating where we're seeing that heavy rain. Here's the setup. There's that cold front in portions of the central plains. That's going to bring the chance for showers, even heavy rain along that front. High rainfall rates along that front as well. We're going to see this continuing today, then moving off to the east tomorrow. Back to you both.
All right, Michelle, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.